increasing the individual will to power holds the symbolic structure of government in check, right? It makes it accountable to its P&L and therefore accountable to its customers, which are citizens. That, I would say, is kind of the core problem we have on the fiat standard, is that government doesn't care about its P&L because it can paper over all of its losses by printing new money. That's why we get all these antiquated government organizations that never go away. And if you're not accountable to your P&L as an organization, why do you care about the preferences of your customers? You can just steal from your customers. So that, this is the problem. This is the human problem right now, is that we have the dominant symbolic structure in the world extracts from us, and we don't have a way to cast, well, pre-Bitcoin, we did not have a way to cast a credible vote of no confidence and say, this doesn't work for me, Uncle Sam. I'm going to do something different.
Agenda is control. It's always control. It's power, and that's it. And, why would they teach you to be an entrepreneur? They don't want you to be an Elon Musk. They hate Elon Musk. Why do they hate him? They're obsessed with this ESG narrative, and yet he's literally doing Tesla cars. How does that make sense? He's literally trying to improve the human life by extending it to another planet and all this, and they don't like him. He paid the most taxes, and that's still not enough. Why? Because he is an example that you can achieve and you can do more and you can be better. He also has multiple women and multiple children because he can. Right? Unethical, not ethical, it doesn't really matter. As long as everybody involved knows the case and is consensual and everything's fine, then whatever. But ultimately, why would they teach you to take more risk? It doesn't make sense. But I do think with everything that's going on in the world right now, COVID and everything like that, we've sort of realized that actually this idea that we had in the 20th century whereby, have a nice safety net, everything's going to be okay, actually isn't the best plan, which is why I love Bitcoin, because I'm like, well, that's my safety net. Like that's my rainy day, when if I don't want to put an injection inside my body and I want to protest like the truckers in Canada, I don't have to worry about my money being confiscated because I hold Bitcoin. That's where my interest in Bitcoin comes from. I feel like it's that safety. It allows me to be sovereign, whether I need to flee a country because of a lockdown, whatever it is, I'm obviously here, not in London anymore. That was very easy for me because, my Bitcoin's just wherever it is and I can just move that. So I think that with everything going on in the world right now, COVID, vaccines, the war on masculinity, feminism going crazy, rejecting whatever it means to be soft and feminine, has woken people up.
So I've been interested in Bitcoin for a while, and I think the transformational part of Bitcoin is this idea that we could have non-fiat money, right? As we're talking about with the Fed, there is a huge risk of currency debasement when the government is in control, and particularly when you have the world's reserve currency. There's just such an enormous temptation to print money to finance your budget and to rack up loans that become unpayable. We're at, 130% of GDP now we owe. So we owe an amount of money greater than the size of our entire economy or our economic output. That sounds very hard to repay to me. So the temptation will eventually be to monetize the debt away, basically to debase the currency to pay for this debt. That's always been a risk throughout history. And now what Bitcoin offers is a different kind of currency where it's not backed by a government, it's backed by math, it's backed by encryption. And so you don't have to trust the government that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. It's in the code, and so you just have to trust that Bitcoin effectively won't be cracked. You just have to believe that the system is secure. And I think a lot of people might, over time, gradually think that's a better form of money.
How much of this is just posturing versus they actually have concerns?
I think, look at the scale of Bitcoin. It's small, right? And if you want to solve the climate crisis, right? If you really believe there's a climate crisis and you want to solve it, you're not going to solve it by attacking 0.1% of electricity consumption. You're just not going to. And so I think that is the wrong use of your sort of resources and energy. You should be, turning off coal, converting it to gas. You should be promoting renewables, spending this much effort disproportionately on an industry which you can't regulate away. You can't eliminate Bitcoin mining. All you can do is push it out of the borders of your country. It doesn't make sense. And so I do think it's completely wrong-headed, even if you're the most ardent environmentalist in the world.
Yeah.
to try and strip out this, small category of computation. It just doesn't make sense.
And so what you need is a neutral reserve asset that, as countries do trade with one another and labor moves up, or they have a strong industry, labor moves up and it rebalances automatically. And so we don't have that today. And all countries are trying to essentially look inwards and create policies that don't realize that we live in an interconnected world for their own good, and it's driving massive chaos, supply chains chaos that is bound to get a lot worse. Like we're a long way from done on this. And so what you can expect in the macroeconomic landscape is, if you look back 20 years and we live in a really safe world, everything's great. And it seems like these iterations are getting worse and worse. And it's hard to believe. And we're sucked into the news media over and over and over. And these events, every one of them is connected, and they're getting bigger and bigger oscillations. And I find myself, you want to react to the events, but if you look at the structure and what has to happen, they're going to get worse. I wish I didn't have to say that, but they're going to get a lot worse.
When you have a big change like this is an anthropological leap. This is the equivalent leap of going from shells to gold, or gold to the promise of gold, or from the promise of gold to the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Those leaps built each one brought incredible wealth to the world. And each one had people saying, no, we still should do shells because that's the way we do everything. And we don't really want to change anything. But then everybody realized that gold was better. And then they moved to the promise of gold. And that was even better than that. And then the credit policy, all of a sudden with credit, we were able to do even more. Now we are making this leap. Bitcoin is much more liquid. It can move anywhere. It is decentralized, transparent. Which means anybody can see what has happened on the blockchain. Everyone can see what's happened on the blockchain. It keeps perfect records. It can be taken anywhere in the world. Bitcoin's accepted everywhere. And that's a real benefit. Long term, that's a fantastic benefit. The other part of Bitcoin is, if I need to send money to somebody in Africa without a bank account, I'm not even sure how I could do it. Call my bank, they turn the dollars into something, they move it over, it has to be transferred to Naira. The Naira has to show up and turn into cash, and then they hand it to somebody. That doesn't make for a very liquid environment. But if I want to send them Bitcoin, it's just, I'm done.